If you haven't already done so, click on subscribe now and turn on notifications to get alerts when the next episode of The New Era is out. Now on with the story. Chapter 9. Subject: Captain Schmidt. Species: human. Ship: USS Strandhog. Location: classified. "So, Captain, this is probably going to be a long one," Commander Henskin said casually. "Think we're in for the suck?" A few eyebrows rose on the other officers as I looked at the former Marine with the sort of deep apathy that can only be obtained by a severe lack of caffeination. Commander Henskin had taken advantage of a program that allows enlisted to become officers when they switch branches. Every now and then he forgets that officers are supposed to speak a certain way, which can be a problem since he's my second in command. "Posture and poise, Henskin," I reminded him. "But when are we not—" "Right, sorry, sir. And when you're right, he chuckled. "Think it's going to be worse than other missions, sir?" Lieutenant Commander Yorvi asked. The Alumare navigator absent-mindedly cleaned her carapace, betraying her nervousness. Actually, come to think of it, is an Alumare exoskeleton considered a carapace? I'll have to look that up later. "Well, this mission's going to be taking us into uncharted territory," I said as casually as possible. Literally. The thing about uncharted territory is that it is full of possibilities. So this could be the best mission we'll ever go on. Or the worst? Correct. I see. "Don't worry about it, Yorvi," Henskin intervened. "All we've got to do is try our best." "Which is what we do by default, no?" I asked with a chuckle before looking around the room. "Where'd they put the coffee pot on this tug?" "In the mess, sir," Lieutenant Bond answered. I looked at the gaunt weapons expert with a betrayed expression. "Why's it in the mess?" "That's where coffee goes, sir." "Negative, Lieutenant. Coffee goes in my cup and my cup goes with me." "Well, I'm afraid this vessel does not come equipped with waitstaff, sir." "I beg to differ. Ensign Lickjo, a coffee, please." I grinned at the Urakari maintenance lead. "Yes, sir. Any additives?" he asked. 2 cubes of sugar and 1 cube of vanilla creamer. Thank you." Lickjo nodded, seemingly happy to be given the task, and hastily left the bridge. I'll admit that I had my doubts when I was told that there would be members of the Republic along for the ride, but the ones I've met seem amicable. Wasn't happy about the surprise meeting with the spider people, though. Damn glad I've got experience with the Alumari or I'd have shit myself. "This ship's weird," Henskin muttered. "What do you mean?" Bon asked. "Everything about it is classified, right?" "Pretty much," I replied. "Then why are the aliens from the Republic on board? No offense, guys." Some of the sensor techs were from various Republic species and waved passively to indicate that no offense was taken. "Well, aren't we allied with the Republic? Why wouldn't they be here?" Bon asked. "Well, we're also allied with some other aliens, right?" "They're not here," Henskin countered. "I can't say that I know the exact reasons behind it, but I'm able to mentally make it make sense," I said. "The Republic is the closest thing we have to a near peer in the whole galaxy thus far. As such, the U.S. needs to know if it can trust the Republic. A spy ship is a perfect way to determine whether that trust can exist. If the Republic has a ship like this in a few years, we know for certain they can't be trusted." "Why's a spy ship perfect?" Henskin asked with a confused expression. "We don't want them to have this kind of tech, do we?" "A spy ship's design is pretty signature. If you change too much of what you're copying from, it's not going to work right," I replied, rubbing my temples. "So if the Republic releases a new ship based on this design, it's going to be obvious where their inspiration came from. Plus, this ship doesn't have much in the way of weapons, armor, or shields, so even if they copy it bow to stern and deck to keel, they aren't going to see many improvements over their current versions of those technologies. If it helps dissuade your concerns, there was a loyalty test when we were chosen for this assignment," an Isolin sensor tech added. "Shortly after we received our orders, we were approached by shady individuals offering tons of money to spy on you and steal technical schematics. Turns out those guys were working for the government and were weeding out undesirables." The other Republic sensor technicians nodded in agreement. "That sounds like something Omega would pull," I chuckled. "I didn't have to," the AI said from my seat's speaker. "The Republic thought of it all on their own. Fun fact, less than 2% of their chosen candidates failed that test. The last time we did something like that, about 15% failed." "So, we're less trustworthy than they are?" Henskin asked. "Not really. While the data may seem to suggest that, it isn't particularly comprehensive. For instance, I don't know how much each individual was offered, which species they were, or even how financially stable they were. All of these variables would likely impact an individual's likeliness to betray confidence, yet these variables weren't accounted for with either test, Omega said. So all we can say for certain is that more members of the U.S. military were untrustworthy for that particular test. Yeah, very interesting, I said, stifling a yawn. Are we ready to go? Not yet, but soon. Keep an eye on your terminal. With an absent-minded nod, I leaned back in my chair. So are all of you ensigns? Henskin asked the Iceland sensor tech. No, I'm a lieutenant, he chuckled. That's higher than ensign, right? I'm not used to your ranking system yet. In the interest of easing confusion, the brass got together and assigned all of the Republic crew U.S. ranks. Instead of easing confusion, though, it just seemed to push it onto their side of the aisle. I watched passively as Henskin and the Iceland chatted about ranks for a while, but perked up when a familiar, warm, and absolutely lovely smell caught my nose. Here's your coffee, sir, Lickjo said, giving me the precious plastic goblet. Thanks, I said, and immediately sipped the elixir. A rush of warmth slid down my throat, and my brain almost immediately woke up. I nodded at Lickjo, who returned to his station. After another few gulps of coffee, I felt reinvigorated. To say I'm addicted to caffeine is an understatement. If it weren't for my need to sleep, I would be caffeinated at all hours. I find it hard to think without it. Of course, this addiction wasn't a new thing. It's been carefully cultivated over a long and arduous career as a scout. I've had to replace many nights of sleep with coffee to get my job done. You know, sir, they've got energy drinks that you can stow in your chair fridge, Henskin pointed out. Not as good as coffee, I shook my head dismissively. If I drank energy drinks, I'd overdo it. Being over-caffeinated is just as bad as being under-caffeinated, maybe even worse. The trick is to find a perfect balance and maintain it. Plus, I like my drinks warm, and energy drinks taste disgusting when they're not cold. Well, they aren't going to let you bring the coffee pot in here. Don't need them to let me. I'm a stealth specialist, I grinned. My antics were rewarded with a few chuckles from the bridge crew. So, have you all served together before? Ensign Lickjo asked. Yes, I replied. Henskin's been my second in command for a couple years now, and Yorvi joined us about, 6 months ago? 8 months, sir, Yorvi corrected me. I'm the new one, Bon added. I'd barely got my stuff aboard the USS Defiant before they reassigned us. And unlike our last ship, this one has barely any weaponry. I suspect I'm going to be scratching my haunches for most of the mission. You would be anyway, Henskin laughed. The whole point of a scout is to avoid contact with the enemy while observing them. On most ships, your job is integral, but on scout ships, you're a just-in-case measure. Yeah, the Gaunt sighed. Most U.S. ships that I've seen can take one hell of a beating and dish it out too. But you said this one has less shields and such? The Iceland sensor tech from earlier asked. Yes, I answered. You'll find that the United Systems has an all-in mentality when it comes to our ships. As such, since this ship is for scouting, it isn't equipped for a fight. It was designed with keeping a low profile in mind, and so it has the bare minimum when it comes to armor, shields, and weapons. Just enough to give us time to run if we're spotted. Needless to say, we'll be trying to avoid any action, Henskin said. My terminal beeped with a notification, and everyone turned to look at me as I opened it. Launch orders. I forwarded the destination to Lieutenant Commander Yorvi. All right, looks like it's time to go. Prepare the FTLD and the buoys. When you're ready, I nodded at the Alomari. Yes, sir, she said. Fleet comms synchronized, jumping in 3, 2, 1...